Friends, as we all know, India is celebrating 75 years of independence, and besides India and Germany are also celebrating the 70th anniversary of their diplomatic relations. Both these occasions are very special. To commemorate these special events, one of the initiatives launched by Consulate General of India, Frankfurt, is a series of interaction between students, professors, scientists, and engineers to showcase the cooperation between India and Germany in the field of science, technology, and higher studies. This initiative is aimed to share the academic and professional experiences of those who have excelled in their respective fields of professions with the Indian students community pursuing higher education in Germany. To record the fifth edition of this series, I, Subhav Goel, student of Hochschule Darmstadt and a representative of Darmstadt Indian Association, have the honor to welcome Dr. Sven Spieckermann, who is the CEO of SimPlan and also a visiting lecturer at the Technical University of Darmstadt and Braunschweig and Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. Dr. Spieckermann graduated from TU Darmstadt in 1994 with a degree in Business Informatics. He then completed his doctorate in Simulation and Optimization task from TU Braunschweig in 2002. He is the spokesperson for SimPlan Executive Board since 1997. Dr. Spieckermann is also a co-author of the textbook Simulation in Production and Logistics. Dr. Sven, before we get to the questions and answers, may I request you to tell our audience about yourself and about your academic and professional life?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you very much for having me in this interesting interview series. As you already said, I studied business informatics. And during my studies, during my time at university, I already got in touch with computer simulation. And you can say it was love at first sight, if you want. So I got hooked up to computer simulation and learned to know a colleague who was also very keen of working in the field, and so we decided to go for a startup right from university. That was the starting point of the company I'm heading today. And it's also the center of my research work. You also asked for my academic part. Computer simulation is closely related to what is going on in research. So ever since I've been closely in touch with a couple of universities as lecturer, as you mentioned, but also in doing research projects and in other activities.
Dr. Spieckermann, you have been working in the industry since 1994. How do you see the cooperation evolving between India and Germany in the field of science and technology and higher education?
Well, interesting question. First of all, my impression is that a lot of very skillful and well-educated students are coming from India, and that has been growing over the past 20, 25 years that I'm in business. If we look more specifically at what is going on in the field where SimPlan is doing project and is working in the field of simulation, then for once I see that a lot of our customers, like automotive companies, for example, they also start doing business in India. They also start opening up production sites and things like that in India. So this brings us then to do project work, let's say related between companies in Germany and India. And also for my work as lecturer, I see more and more students coming from India in my courses. So that's things that have been quite changing over the past 20 or 25 years.
As you just said that you started the company along with your friends in the college itself, that was the Wortmann EDV Beratung GmbH in 1992 along with Mr. Dirk and Mr. Roman Wortmann, which in 1995 was renamed as SimPlan. How would you recall your experience of starting a company vis-a-vis working in an established company?
You mean as an established company, the Wortmann EDV Beratung GmbH?
No, I mean something like say suppose Siemens or something like Audi or something like that.
Ah, you mean as opposed to start working in a
exactly.
That's a good question. As a matter of fact, it was a bit of a tough decision. You know, having studied at Technical University of Darmstadt, having a degree in business informatics, it is quite a decision to say you go into a startup or you apply in one of the big companies that you named. But I was very enthusiastic about simulation, and at that time there was not too many companies already applying that. I was also quite quite curious and enthusiastic about starting my own company. And so this led to the decision to start up SimPlan, if you want, right away from university.
And in the past 10 years, there has been a lot of push for entrepreneurs. As a result, a lot of students who wish to set up their own companies. What would be your advice to these students?
Also a very good question. Well, when I founded in 92, 94, as you mentioned, I did not found, you mentioned my partners, so I did not found the company alone. And this is one advice that I guess I would give to students founding a company: don't start on your own. You need to have some counterpart who can motivate you if you're not too motivated, because there will be also some downs when you start your company. So that's maybe advice number one. Look out for a couple of partners, and you should be enthusiastic about either the field that you want to start your company in, or about entrepreneurship. And best is, of course, if you're enthusiastic about both. And also, what I did, or what we did back then, is I started my company right from university. It might be also good if you have either in the team of founders, or as yourself, if you have also some experience from other companies, from bigger companies. So starting right from scratch, right from university can work. It worked in our case apparently, but maybe it's not the best thing to do. So having some experience from a larger company, from a consultancy, maybe something like that can be helpful here and there to avoid mistakes that I guess we made in the first years.
And my next question is, like, SimPlan provides distribution and production logistics with the help of simulation. Could you please explain like how it works?
Well, what typically happens is that customers address us if they think about a new production logistics system. So let's say an automotive company wants to build a new car manufacturing line, or a distribution company wants to build a new warehouse. And what they do is they use the type of simulation that we are offering as a test bed before they actually build the system. So we set up the virtual warehouse and virtual production system in the computer. And what I tell my students sometimes, it's a bit like gaming. So we are setting up a computer game of the production side of the warehouse, and then we play around with the customer in order to find a good configuration of this production, best possible configuration of this production side that is really working nicely and smoothly right from the start. That's the idea. It's very visual, so because the models that we built, if you look at our homepage, they come with a 3D animation. So it's, you see your warehouse in 3D, and you see your production line in 3D. But then there's also a warning coming with that, because, I mean, if it's like gaming, it's more like serious gaming. What I mean is, at the end of the day, our customers are making an investment decision, so they invest a couple of million, tens of millions, maybe even more in their new production or warehousing site, and they want to be quite sure that it's working. And if the simulationist says, yes, that's the way it works, you should be quite serious, quite sure about what he says. So that's the difference between playing games and doing simulation in the industry context. Right?
That's true. So and since you work on simulation, so obviously you use a lot of software tools.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel are the main requirements for a person working on any softwares like this? Since mostly students work with ANSYS or AutoCAD, and like Simulink also nowadays, but like what kind of softwares the company uses, and how do you think the student should work on that?
Yeah, I understand. Well, in the field that we are active, just to give you a few names, there is, for example, simulation tool coming from Siemens, which is named Plan Simulation, which, for example, in the German automotive industry is used quite often. Then there's a tool originally coming from Russia, now coming from the US. It's called Logic, which is used quite often. And then there's a tool originally coming from the UK, now also being part of a US company called Emulate 3D, Demo 3D, now belonging to Rockwell, just to give you a few names. It's all about discrete event simulation software and tools. And well, for a student who really wants to get active in this field, there's one very important thing. If you want to build up let's say, a serious simulation model, in terms of, it's not just a very small model, but of a real warehouse, a real production line, you typically need to understand programming somehow, because it takes some coding to set up a larger simulation world. So if you don't like coding, better don't start using this tool. And then the second most important, let's say, foundation, if you want, is statistics. Because very characteristic for the type of simulation that we're doing is also that we're doing stochastic simulation. To give you an example, for example, stochastic machine breakdown or stochastic transportation times. These are things that are part of the models that we are building. And so if you want to use the simulation tools properly, you need to have good command of stochastic statistics. So better watch out in these courses.
And as you said that you have a lot of research projects as well ongoing with the university and here also. So could you please explain a little bit about them?
Yeah, sure. So we're actually driving a lot of our research and development work based on these research projects that you mentioned, and typically it goes in one of two directions. First direction could be we try to deploy this type of simulation in new industries. To give you an example, discrete event simulation typically comes from mass production, like automotive or others that we briefly mentioned. We used our involvement in research projects to also apply this type of technology in one-of-a-kind production, like shipbuilding or construction industries. So getting into new industries by support of these R&D projects is one focus. The other focus is really, if you want, extending the features of these simulation tools that we're using. To also give you an example there, we've been driving the deployment of this type of simulation as a service into the cloud over the past couple of years. And this is also something that we do based on our research activities.
As a visiting lecturer at TU Darmstadt, TU Braunschweig and KIT Karlsruhe for simulation, how do you see the current generation of students, especially those coming from India?
Also, as I said before, I see more students from India in my courses today, so that's one thing that changed over the years. I typically see well-educated, becoming well-educated from school in the things that are important in our field, like mathematics or basic understanding of computer science, things like that. So that's true for the German and for the Indian students, but especially also for the students coming from India. What I also see is every now and then that sometimes, that's not only true for Indian students, but for others coming from foreign countries as visiting students as well, they underestimate the importance of language a bit. What I mean by that is, if we, for example, have a working student in our company and we want to integrate him or her into a project, in, let's say, 80 or more than 80% of the projects, German is the project language. So if he or she wants to be integrated in a project and wants to learn something for the project, language is an important issue. It's of course not, I mean, you know very well probably that you can get far with English in Germany and also in our projects, in many of our projects. But let's say a mid-sized German company still from us expects German as project language, and that's sometimes underestimated by foreign students. That's one of my observations.
And now my final question to you, sir. As I said in the beginning, India is celebrating 75 years of independence and the 70th year of diplomatic relations with Germany. So what message would you like to give to the Indian community on this special occasion?
Well, first of all, congratulations to these 75 years, and I guess we got to congratulate both of us for the cooperation. Well, I mean, we're mentioning cooperation now. We talked about education quite a bit in the past minutes. We talked about entrepreneurship quite a bit over the past minutes, and I think if you want to have a thriving society, and a successful society, these three pillars are very important: cooperation, education, and also entrepreneurship. And maybe my message could be have that in the back of your mind during your time in education, during your time at university, during your time when you try to understand what companies do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Spieckermann, for providing us this opportunity and sharing your experiences with us. I would also like to thank Consulate General of India, Frankfurt, for this wonderful initiative, which provided a platform for Indian students to interact with dignitaries and gain from the experiences. I am sure this initiative is going to benefit our fellow Indian students and Indian community in Germany who will be watching this video. Friends, with these words, the 5th edition of this series is coming to an end. And as we witnessed the historic occasion of 75 years of independence, let's celebrate with pride our rich culture, heritage, tradition, glorious history, as well as the progress that our country has made in these 75 years. Jai Hind and Namaste.